Very much for inviting me to say a few words today, and very interested to hear what Ian had to say. My own son trained as a peer mediator in primary school, and I think he got a lot from the process. He also got a badge that said mediator, so I'm able to borrow that when I need to. On a more serious note, I'm delighted to be here today to be supporting the launch of the Scottish Mediation Charter and to be able to host this in our offices. As an organisation, Morton Fraser has signed the Mediation Charter, and we see this launch as a very important step in recognising the value of mediation in the resolution of all sorts of disputes in Scotland. I think we're pleased to be one of the first to sign up to the Charter at the start of a year where I hope to see some positive changes within with the integration of mediation into the civil justice system and more widely into Scottish society. And I must commend the good work that's been done by Scottish Mediation and others to get to this stage, and I know there's a lot more planned throughout the year. So why do I think that mediation should be advanced in Scotland? Well, I think it might help to give a bit of my own background here. I've been with Morton Fraser since the mid-1980s, and I've always been involved in the dispute resolution area. I actually like disputes. Not personally, but I like dealing with disputes. We've always had a culture of trying to resolve disputes in a pragmatic and constructive manner, and I think that left its mark on me early on. But I first encountered mediation as a discipline in the early to mid-1990s when a colleague of mine who was qualified as a mediator and sought to integrate that more into the civil claims that we were dealing with. He made others aware of this within the litigation team, and it was very much early days of mediation, but my interest was piqued, and I could see that it was a very useful tool in trying to resolve all sorts of disputes. To resolve disputes where direct discussions hadn't been capable of bringing about a resolution, and before you got to court. Now, I could say an awful lot about mediation, but I don't intend to today. I think the short of it is that mediation is a facilitated dialogue in a confidential, in a safe environment with a view to reaching a resolution of a dispute. It allows participants the opportunity to say what they need to say in a way that simply is not going to be possible in courts. And critically, it also affords others the opportunity to hear what is said, and sometimes to hear that with a fresh pair of ears. In the many years that I've been involved in dealing with disputes, what's really clear to me is a lot of those disputes could have stood a better chance of better resolution had there been some constructive dialogue between the parties involved in the disputes, so if they could deal with things directly, or between the agents acting in the disputes who simply had not been constructive enough. Now, very often this does happen. There's good dialogue between parties, there's good dialogue between lawyers, but that's not always the case, and for whatever reason an impasse can be arrived at. To me, it makes logical sense to bring someone else in to help with that conversation rather than moved up by default to court. And I think it's important to make it clear that, contrary to what's sometimes suggested, mediation is not an easy option, it's not a soft option, but rather it may be a much tougher but more fruitful way of approaching a dispute than going to court. And I was chatting about this with a colleague last week, and this is a commercial litigator who's involved in dealing with high-value disputes. And his observation was that for him, the process could be much more involved, much more testing than going to court. There are a set of rules to be played, to follow there, but in mediation, it's an open discussion. It's difficult for the parties, it's difficult for the lawyers, but ultimately, his view was it's much more productive. There's a better chance of getting a good result there. So mediation affords the opportunity to have that good dialogue in a safe environment. Now, dialogue can be counterproductive, as we all know. Conversations can be bad as well as good. But if you place that dialogue within the environment of a facilitated discussion where you're getting some help to deal with it in a constructive way, there's a better chance of having a good outcome. My first involvement in representing a client in mediation was in the early 2000s, and it appeared to me to be an intractable dispute which involved all sorts of court actions, and I thought, well, let's try this mediation. and it was the first time I'd actually been involved in a mediation, although I'd referred clients to ones before. There were remarkable results achieved there when I simply thought that was not possible, and the outcome that was achieved there could not have been achieved using the court processes. It was a carefully crafted outcome that really suited the parties, and there was no other way that it could have been achieved other than perhaps if there had been direct dialogue between the parties, but it was in a scenario where that simply wasn't possible. That caused me to train as a mediator, and I thought, this has got real value, I want to do this. And I've been mediating all manner of disputes since 2004. And over the years, what's been seen very much as a fringe activity, and I think you can certainly say in the early 90s it was viewed slightly suspiciously, and it was perceived at times as having lesser value in resolving disputes than, say, going to courts, has now shifted. So it's an integral part of the dispute resolution system, in some areas of the dispute resolution system, such as in employment tribunals, in simple procedure, in family law. And I hope that this year we will see mediation become more embedded within the civil justice system. Now is the time for that. Now, of course, mediation is not suitable for every dispute, but raising awareness of its potential benefits is a huge step for the Scottish civil justice system and for society generally. In terms of what we do, we use mediation in employment disputes, in family law matters, in commercial actions, and really anything where there's a possibility that some direct discussion might lead to a positive resolution. Our lawyers are trained to advise on how to represent parties in mediation, and of course all lawyers are required by the Law Society to advise clients of the benefits and suitability of all methods of dispute resolution. At Morton Fraser, we commit to advising our clients on the appropriate use of mediation, both in terms of dealing with disputes and of including appropriate clauses in contracts, agreements and forms. So looking outwardly, we see there's a huge amount to be gained in terms of the use of mediation. But looking inwardly, we encourage clarity of communication and place great importance on a good working environment and culture. And mediation fits very well with that. It logically follows that to equip our staff with the knowledge and the skills to constructively resolve disagreements makes eminent sense. Now, whilst I think as an organisation we've been doing a lot that's set out in the Charter, we really welcome the structure that's set out there. We welcome the opportunity to set out publicly that we're behind the appropriate use of mediation, and we welcome the opportunity to tell others about mediation and hopefully for them to sign the Charter too. Again, concluding, I commend Scottish Mediation for their efforts and encourage organisations to commit to the Charter this year. Thank you.